Hey, Michael. Thanks for asking for help. Your throw looks totally serviceable at 300 feet. There's a handful of things that you're doing that it looks like you're not aware of that are keeping you at that 300 mark. Super, super, super common misunderstandings that everyone makes. Like, for some reason, our body wants to throw pretty much the way you're throwing, and it's not the most efficient way. So, let's jump into it. So, first of all, you are doing the thing that drives me crazy. Like it doesn't matter. I find it fascinating because everyone does it. That's not true. Almost everyone does it, including myself. So you're putting the disc up here at eye line because you're sighting your shot and you're checking your angle. That totally makes sense. However, you need to be aware this is not where you are going to release the disc in physical space. If you pull through near your chest level and release up here, we're going to have problems, right? So, like, obviously, that's not the case, but we often mentally equate this spot with where we're going to release the disc, and it's absolutely not right, right? You want to release the disc like down here at shoulder level or even below that, depending on your throw. So be aware of that. You can totally sight like this, but what I try to do is check my sight and then drop the disc down to an estimation of where it's actually going to release in physical space relative to my body. And then, so I'll sight here to check my angle and whatever. I'll bring the disc down to where I actually estimate the release point to be relative to my shoulders. And then I'll bring the disc into my power pocket position, keeping it on the hyzer or anhyzer or flat angle that I want to release it on. And then I'll reach back on that angle, come back to the power pocket on that angle, and release on that angle. So you're kind of just introducing some slop when you do it this way. And again, like everyone does it, it's not a big deal. Just want you to be aware of it. So then you go into your throw, you bring your disc back down to kind of your center position. But then while you're moving, you put it back up again. Like, so now we have a problem, right? Because you've checked it, and now during your walk up, you feel the need to check it again. Just trust it. Like you did it right the first time. Because now the disc is all the way up there, and you're bringing it down and introducing this swooping motion. And like you fix it, you don't raise the disc too high in the back or anything. But it's conceptually, I don't like that. So once you bring the disc down to your center, keep it at your center. It's your disc now. Don't send it back out there to the target until you send it back out to the target. So that's just like a intent thing. So don't sight high. If you do sight high, fix it afterwards. Next thing I saw is that you have a pretty big X step. That's fine. That's kind of big and that's kind of big. That one's fine. That one's fine too, but like in general, when we're learning, it's way better to have less momentum going into the throw. So I won't complain about that step, but your X step is too big, right? Make that like half as long. The reasoning is now you have you're not bad again, like, but you have a little bit of a tilt in your spine. Which the reason that's a problem is because you're going to fix that lean, and now like you can see it, right? This shoulder is going to lead too much of the throw. Our throw does not come from our shoulder. So I would describe this like your shoulder is going to stick out. So there, your shoulder is sticking out, right? You are clearly trying to break down a door right here. That's not what we want to do. If you're going to break something down, do it with your elbow. So your elbow should be out here in front. Your elbow leading from centered spine rotation is fine. Your shoulder leading is not fine. This is why you're stuck at 300, because you're trying to throw with your shoulder. Yeah, we'll leave that there. So you have a big X step, You have that big forward reach with the disc here that I don't think is helping you. What else did I have? Man, I can't read my own notes. I gotta work on that. Okay, round disc path. Yeah, so you're from, I think, potentially related to the big reach forward is the disc just has too much momentum going back, or you're not conceptualizing the position correctly. But the disc is going behind your body. So you bring it across your chest, that's good. And then it goes scoop, and now it's behind you, right? The disc is here, your chest is in the way of the disc going straight forward. And then this is our second big fundamental problem. So instead of ending up in this position, I want you to end up with a disc like out here. So you're going to move it like a decent foot towards the camera. So basically, if you were to just straighten your elbow completely by this point, you would be in a much better spot. The way Drew does his throw, he actually reaches back like you and gets a little bit too round, or the disc is too behind him. But then as he reaches this foot out to full plant, and as that heel settles down, he then pops the disc this way. So he's actually, like, it's a weird thing. It's really hard to do correctly, but he can do it. So I'm going to try to learn how to do it. But so far my efforts have not been complete. But what most beginners do and what most coaches do is they'll instead swing the disc back and then curl it into a pocket like that. But what Drew does is he reaches back bent, so his reach back is coming here, and then he pops it out and it comes in and out. So Drew's looks like this, everybody else goes the other way and does a spiral like that. Not that important, just make sure you're reaching out here and not getting the disc behind you. That way the disc will go from out to in closer at your power pocket, and then it'll do this little scoop around your thumb. So like right here is where it starts to rip off of your thumb, and it switches directions and goes out again. If that's kind of a lot, if that's confusing, ask questions. So make sure your reach back is not round. Then you're shouldering it a decent amount, like a lot. You're shouldering it a lot. So, and your brace here is too soft. So because you have all this weight going forward, and you're not using the brace to keep your hips down and back. So here you're going to spill over that way. You have to. What I would rather see is a firmer brace on a leg that's committed to keeping your hips back here more. I used to be super hung up on trying to look like Drew and making sure that my knee is dead locked straight like this. I can't really do that. Either I don't understand the form enough, or I don't have enough athleticism to just pop my leg straight like Drew does. But I recently found out that Tristan Tanner throws very far with a very slow walk up, and he doesn't get his knee anywhere near locked. So I don't think it's important that the knee is locked. I think it's important that the knee doesn't bend more during the brace. So Tristan Tanner has a bent knee, but it's not mushy. It's not bending more during the brace. If your knee is bending more during the brace, there's a problem. If it's staying a certain amount of bent and still putting a lot of force to slow your hip down, I think that's fine. Jury's still out on that one. I'm just working on that realization currently. But you're shouldering. Don't shoulder. That's the most useless cue you've ever heard in your life. How do you not shoulder? The way you don't shoulder is by keeping your spine upright. We need to think about throwing the disc by spinning the hips so that the hips can help spin the shoulders, so that the shoulders can support the elbow, so that the elbow can whip open. The powerhouse is the hips. The most important thing is doing the footwork correctly so that you have momentum, so that your brace can stop the hips in a way that they spin really quick and power the throw. The power is not coming from leaning your spine over into your shoulder. Hopefully that makes sense. So this is also a huge problem. Your toes are open, which means your knee is open, which means your hip can't close like it's supposed to. So let's look at your rear leg for a second. So what we want is from the weight landing on this X step. So now your weight's on your X step. That looks pretty good. Like, what I'm looking for is how much you are folding into this rear hip crease. So if you were to put your hand on that spot on your pants, the idea of the coil in your hips is that you're trying to crush that hand between like your lower belly and your upper thigh on your left leg. So that's where our power comes from, is exploding out of that using the glute and the hamstring. So you're in that hip crease decently, and now your hips have slid forward a ton, and they just have too much momentum going that way, and your foot can't stop it anymore. So your brace foot needs to be toes closed 90 degrees to the target. That'll allow for the possibility of your leg activating the way I want it to, but you also kind of need a little bit of a knee dip in, and then you'll want the same thing in the back eventually. So what this does for me as a mental cue and as a physical thing that changes the position of your body is it's like you're trying to shoot your weight down here. So right now you're putting your weight in your shoulder because you're trying to power it by that. You want to think about getting your weight down here. So folding the knee in off of the drive step gets your weight just going down more, right? And then doing the same thing on your front keeps the weight down. So your rear leg, the job is to slide the weight down under your brace, and then your brace's job is to keep the weight hanging back behind your brace foot. Then everything spins real quick, and you've got 350, no problem. So don't let your toes open. And then, the other big thing is, like, I drew it here. That's also wrong. It needs to be like maybe a little bit. You're not too wide. I won't complain about that. But it needs to be offset. So there's your X step here and your initial step that happens somewhere back here need to be on the same rail, and that needs to be a different rail than where your X step ends up. So these two things being separate means that there's a third rail where your center of gravity goes. So then when you plant here, your center of gravity kind of smashes into your brace directly, but your trailing leg, your whole trailing leg, will go backwards behind you. This is, I think, one of the most undercoached concepts in disc golf. I've seen a lot of people miss it, and I've not seen a lot of people coach very clearly on it. One person that has is Tristan Tanner. I'll get you a link to the video that I'm talking about. But he has a really big offset. Like he says in that video, it's bigger than he would recommend most people do. But that's, I think, a big piece of how he's able to get the disc to go as far as he does with as slow of a walk up as he has. So I'm kind of shifting my coaching, I think it's experimental, to modeling the throw more after Tristan Tanner's and less after Drew's, because Drew's form is like picture perfect ideal, but he has a lot of really explosive athleticism, which I don't think is accessible to a lot of people, including myself. So I think Tristan's throw might be a better thing to model for beginners, definitely, and intermediate players as well. So yeah, that was a long rant. But don't keep your toes open. That's the moral of the story. Then you end up pivoting on the ball of your foot. So here your heel is clearly not down. You're up on the ball of your foot, which is a function of your weight spilling too far forward. At this point, I would want to see your hips like still way back here, a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of spine leanness forward. Forward is okay, but you have like twice what I want to see here. So you're at maybe 30 degrees, 35 degrees, and I want to see you at like 15. So your weight is just spilling too far forward because you didn't get enough of a brace, because your brace was toes open and it wasn't offset enough so that your trailing leg couldn't go behind you. So what is your trailing leg doing? I think it kind of just gets stuck behind your brace. Yeah, totally. So if you watch pros, like, so this is a back view, so now I'm looking at you throwing that way. So if your brace foot is here, your trailing leg is going to go, it's going to make two shapes. It's going to scoop up and it's going to go that way. Like, so right here's you, and here's your shoulders, and you just released, and your arm is like that. Your leg is going to go this way, and then it's going to the right, and then just after that it's going to spin back around and be on the left side. And the spinning of the leg after the disc is released is what tips you back up to balanced. So you'll see a very distinct, if you look at photos of like Drew or Tanner throwing from behind, you'll see their leg scoop to the right, and then it'll flip back over and be on the left. And you don't do that. Your foot just goes, it does a little scoop, and then it comes around, because your brace is in line with your direction of throw. So pivoting on the ball of the foot will be solved by the moving your plant step. So if you move your plant step over here and you touch down with the ball of your foot first and then rock onto the heel, then your weight will be shifting from toe to heel, and when you pivot, the pivot will happen on your heel naturally. Yeah, so that one should be relatively easy. And then your weight gets too far over your brace. Yep, so that's about all I got. Let's do a super quick review of it. So don't sight high. If you do sight high, fix your release point in real space afterwards. Your initial step and your X step are probably too big. You're getting the disc a little bit round behind you here. You had a torso lean backwards going into your X step, and a little bit right now. And maybe you didn't have one going into your X step. That might be incorrect. But that makes you shoulder it a little too much, which you can see here. Your plant toes are open, and yeah, the rest of it is output. The pivot on your ball of your foot and your weight being too far over your brace are not things you have to change actively. You change the things before them to change those things. Yeah, that's about all I got. So big takeaways are: make sure you're getting this foot closed, make sure you're offsetting that foot a decent amount, and that's the biggest thing. And make sure you're getting the disc out onto kind of a wide rail position and not letting it get round behind you. Yeah, so do that for now. If the bracing isn't making sense, I can send you to some Loop Ghost videos to help clean that up, but let's not do too much at once. Yeah, just see if you can fix those things. All right, ask questions if you got them. Good luck, sir.